TCI is brought to you by Forestry, sire of 43 stakes winners, including multiple Grade 1 winner Shackelford, winner of the 2012 Met Mile.
Welcome back to TCI, your inside track to the Breeders' Cup. I'm John Siegel alongside Joel Cunningham. Today we're going to reveal another top 5 for you. Joel, this time it's for the Classic.
Yeah, John, and we're just going to talk about the older horses. We're going to give 5 older horses that we think forecast best. You know, November, 10 furlongs, Santa Anita in that big feature race, the $5 million Classic. We're not going to integrate the 3-year-olds yet. We're not going to integrate, fillies and mares that may point for it. Horses like Royal Delta, who is ultra impressive over the weekend. We'll get into that a little bit. But we're talking about the top 5 older horses, and we're going to try to identify horses that maybe came out of Stephen Foster this weekend, which I thought personally was the best field we've seen so far in the older horse division.
All right, well, let's jump right in there. Let's start off at number 5. I see To Honor and Serve. You know, this horse created quite a stir back in April, but then was disappointing in the Met Mile.
Yeah, John, he was a horse that I really thought in the Classic last year had an outside shot. It didn't run well, and then he came back and won the Cigar Mile. Now as a 4-year-old, he's a big colt and he's by Bernardini. He has some stamina, so I just think that this is a high cruising speed type horse. His Winchester was good. Met Mile, I'm not so sure he wants to be a Met Mile kind of horse with those type of, horse like Caleb's Posse and Shackelford that were in form that can really fly home and turn it on going around one turn. To me, he doesn't quite pick it up that fast, around one turn. He's a high cruising speed horse. I just think that with his pedigree, going to Saratoga now and stretching back out around 2 turns, races like the Whitney and Woodward, I think this horse can have a huge summer.
All right, let's move now to number 4. Joel, I see Ron the Greek. A little surprised you got him only at 4 because he's already won 2 Grade 1s, the Big Cap and now the Stephen Foster. Yeah. Stephen Foster was a really talented group, and he defeated him.
Yeah, he won it over the weekend, John. You know what? In that race, I thought Nate's Mineshaft got a little leg weary in the stretch after a pretty aggressive pace, started floating out, and when Wise Dan tried to re-rally, I think he pushed him out a few passes and it really opened up for Ron the Greek. But still, at a mile and 1/8, I really question if Ron the Greek could beat these type horses at a mile and 1/8. And he showed that he is as good as he's ever been. Now, here's a horse at 3 and 4 that you wondered if he was good enough to be this type of horse. Now, as a 5-year-old, for him to win the Big Cap at 10 furlongs, at Santa Anita, as impressively as he did, going a mile and 1/4, and he got pace that day. He'll probably get pace in the Breeders' Cup Classic. I mean, you got to figure with Bodemeister and, Shackelford, Romans are going to try to win horse of the year with him. He'll probably be in the Classic maybe, adding speed to that race. So you're going to get probably a good pace in that race. Ron the Greek's a horse that likes the track, the distance, and he's razor sharp right now. 10 furlongs, he's a dead closer. My question with him is, it's been a long year. He ran good in the Foster. He ran good earlier this year. Can he sustain that form from now until November?
All right, I'm going to pass number 3 and go to number 2 because you mentioned Wise Dan, also in the Stephen Foster. Very close to Ron the Greek, but he did lose to him, but you have him in at number 2. He's
kind of the opposite of Ron the Greek. He's a horse with tactical speed. He's lightly raced. So Wise Dan, he's got to show me he can put together a campaign that's going to keep him on top of his game in November, because here's a horse that, if you look at his past performance, he races a couple races and then you don't see him for a while. So Wise Dan needs to stay in form, needs to stay right. And I don't even know if he has a pedigree to get 10 furlongs, but when you're talking about just an absolutely brilliant horse, John, that 117 Byron, that Ben Ali performance, I know it was on synthetic, but that's the best performance we've seen by an older horse this year, in my opinion, particularly, at more of a classic type distance. And he won the Clark last year. I thought he was unlucky maybe to win over the weekend in the Foster John. So I just think from a talent standpoint, he belongs on top of this list.
All right, let's jump back down to number 3. This is a very talented horse. He reminds me a lot of To Honor and Serve in the fact that, here's a talented 3-year-old that's come back and been good at 4. Of course, we're talking about Mucho Macho Man. Yeah. He defeated Ron the Greek in the Sunshine Millions earlier this year, but he was also disappointing in his last start.
Well, you mentioned To Honor and Serve. I think Mucho Macho Man and To Honor and Serve are very, very similar horses. They're similar in stature. They're huge monstrous type horses with high cruising speed. They're talented enough to beat some fields around a 1-turn mile, as Mucho Macho Man showed at Gulfstream. But I think these horses really want to go, 9 furlongs, maybe 10 furlongs. I thought Mucho Macho Man, he's another horse that, again, doesn't have a big turn of foot. But we saw he stays on and grinds away. We were very impressed with his Derby performance last year, John. I just think here's a horse that, has clearly gotten better this year. And he didn't run so well in the Ali Sheba, but they gave him a little time off. It was hot that weekend. He had a hard early campaign. He was a favorite in the Ali Sheba. Now he breezed a bullet in New York. He's another horse like to honor and serve that I could really see having a huge summer in New York.
All right, let's jump now to number 1. No surprises here. It's Game On Dude. Joel, he went to Dubai, was very disappointing in there. Everybody was concerned about the Dubai, is he going to slump coming back from Dubai? He does not. Very impressive into California.
Have we had an American horse run well over the Tapeta yet in Dubai at Maidan? We just haven't, John. Turf horses are winning that race. Throw out the Dubai performances across the board. For Royal Delta, Game On Dude, I don't care. We know Game On Dude loves 10 furlongs. We know he's a fighter. He's got good tactical speed. He was obviously the runner-up in the Classic last year. And he loves Santa Anita for Bob Baffert. I mean, here's a horse that's on top of his game. He's awesome. Again, it's so incredible how the good ones sustain their form. We know Awesome Jim ran forever. So I have full confidence in Game On Dude being number 1 in terms of the older horses right now on this list. Now, what's interesting is how are these horses going to stack up against the 3-year-olds? It's been since, Ravens Pass, and even though that was on the synthetic, Curlin went in the Slop and Monmouth, and before that, it was Tisnow in 2000 in terms of a 3-year-old winning the Classic. So the older horses always have the upper hand in these races, but in my opinion, these 3-year-olds like Bodemeister and Painter and Union Rags are very talented, so it'd be interesting to see how the older horses stack up against 3-year-olds, and then throw Royal Delta in the mix.
Yeah, I mean, you've mentioned Royal Delta 3 times already. We obviously have to talk about it. She was very impressive. Mike Smith aboard for the first time. Joel, she looked great at Churchill.
It's the performance of the weekend, in my opinion, John. She won with something left and just dusted, her rivals, which, again, she faced St. John's River in there, a runner-up in the Oaks last year, but really wasn't a very good group. It's not like Awesome Feather, Awesome Maria, horses like that were in the race, but if you just look at that performance and compare it to the Foster, it was a faster race. She won easily. She loves Churchill. I think it's easy for one to assume that if she were in the Foster, she would have probably won that race as well. Speed figures off the charts on this filly. She's back on top of her game, and boy, watch out. You got to think Basilu, given the money they did for her, wanting to run her in the Dubai World Cup, he's pointing for that Breeders' Cup Classic, that $5 million payday at the end of the year, not the Ladies' Classic. So I think Royal Delta is a big player now in that Classic division.
All right, let's stay on the topic of fillies, but let's go to Belmont now and talk about a 3-year-old race. Joel, of course, we're talking about the Mother Goose. We see it's light on entries, but it's not light on talent.
Well, John, I mentioned the Ladies' Classic. You want to know who might be one of the favorites in the Ladies' Classic? In terms of 3-year-old fillies, it might come out of this race. I mean, I really think when you look at the 1 and 2 horse in here, Believe You Can, the Kentucky Oaks winner, now facing who it might be the most talented 3-year-old filly in form right now, Bob Baffert's contested, John. Both have brilliant speed, breaking from the inside. They're both Grade 1 winners now. 1 Grade 1 apiece. Winner of this race right now is your front runner for champion 3-year-old filly. So the Mother Goose is, to me, the race of the weekend. And I think between Rosie Napravnik and Javier Castellano, it's going to be a jockey's race, both with a lot of tactical speed. I give Javier the advantage because he's drawn outside. I Believe You Can. He's going to try to make her come around him. But it'd be interesting to see at that middle distance, can Contested stretch it out a little bit more against this group? You can Believe You Can. Is she fast enough to keep up with Contested? And if they go against each other early, who does that set it up for?
Well, I'll tell you what, I think it sets it up perfect for number 5, Zoe Impressive.
Right.
Joel, this horse has run second here the last 2 races, but she is primed and ready for a big run.
I'd have to agree with you, John. I don't know if she's as talented as the top 2, but race sets up for her, and they get too aggressive with each other early. I tell you what, Zoe Impressive is a filly that I think is talented enough at this distance around 1 turn, coming from out the pace. I've been waiting for her to break through. I think she has a big chance from off the pace to upset the apple cart.
All right, thank you, Joel. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you come back next week. We'll recap the Mother Goose. We'll also give you a top 5 for 3-year-old fillies.